Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Simon Dowling and I'll be chairing this meeting. So we've had a change of manager, we've signed a couple of new players, but the core of the team remains the same and there's a lot of experience on the committee. This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we'll ensure that you're not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film or photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. If you're intending to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. Can I please request that mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that the microphone, or rather the speaker on your laptop is switched to silent. I'll give you a moment to do that. And can I also remind you, when you do speak, please speak up and lean into your microphone so that everyone can hear you. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a marked fire exit. Don't use the lifts and make your way to the assembly point on the training pitch at Ipswich Town Football Ground. Some introductions. We have the Area Planning Manager, Mark Russell, to my left. Our Legal Advisor, Ian Dupre, sitting behind. Our Case Officer, Linda Bacon, who's presenting today's application. And our Governance Officer, Claire Philpott. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence or substitutions, please?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Number 2, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interests by members. Are there any to declare? Councillor Mabry.
Thank you, Chairman. I declare that I am part of a biodiversity group, but that is Great Waldingfield. It is nowhere in this area. I have spoken to our lawyer and he is in agreement I can carry on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of lobbying. Are there any declarations of lobbying, please? No, none. 4, declarations of personal site visits, not including this morning. Are there any to declare? Lovely. Thank you. Item 5, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 30th of April 2025. These minutes are on pages 5 to 12 of your agenda. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes, please? Councillor Mabry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to comment that I actually objected to this. The reason I gave was my concerns over heritage buildings, and I thought that that would have taken some weight and been recorded in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other points on accuracy of the minutes, rather? All good? Okay, so we need a proposer to accept these minutes, Councillor Register, and a seconder, Councillor Osborne. Thank you very much. And we're going to do an electronic vote on this one. So Governance Officer will now conduct that vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer, can I take your vote? So that's an abstention. Thank you. Councillor Mabry?
4, once that amendment has been made. Thank you.
Councillor Malvesi? And Councillor Grandon? Abstain. Thank you, Chair. So we have 8 votes for and 3 abstentions. That's carried. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Site inspections, that is future site inspections. No requests. Sorry, no requests. Okay, thank you very much. So we move to today's main business, item 8, which is considering application DC 24-04287 for Rectory Cottage, Old Rectory Lane, Shimpling, to which we made a site visit this morning. The papers for this start on page 17 in your agenda, and I'd like to invite Linda Bacon, the case officer, to introduce the application to the committee, please.
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, members. The application description as applied for is on the screen before you. The word replacement is highlighted because the issue of whether the proposal is in fact a replacement dwelling is a key point discussed in your papers. There is just one update to mention as circulated in tabled papers, and that's an email received from the agent pointing out that the planning history relates to an adjacent site and that the education element of the proposal is off-site. Is that easier? Are you hearing me better? I'll try now. Is this okay? Most members of this committee attended the site inspection earlier today and will now be familiar with the site, but for context, this aerial image shows the site in relation to its neighbours to the north and two to the south. It also shows the site in relation to the open countryside that surrounds the site, and also an area of woodland to the south, which is a triple SI. This plan identifies the site in red. The existing dwelling, which is to revert to habitat, is in the southwest corner of the site. And its curtilage, its residential curtilage, extends to approximately here. The majority of the site, as you can see, is open paddock land. This site, or this slide shows the site hatched. There is a footpath adjacent to the western site boundary on the other side of the track that we walked up this morning, and you can see the woodland, which is the triple SI to the south and east. Just a couple of photos to refresh memories from this morning's site visit. This is the existing dwelling on the right-hand side with the paddock to the left. And this photo is of the site itself with the access track leading to a neighbouring property on the left-hand side, and the public footpath is on the far left on the other side of that hedgerow. This shows the site in context with neighbouring dwellings highlighted to the north and two to the south. This is the site layout of the proposal. There are three elements to it. There's a new dwelling proposed towards the northeast corner of the paddock land. It's roughly 100 metres away from the existing dwelling, which is in the southwest corner of the site. Access to the new dwelling would be here off the existing access track that we walked along this morning. The existing dwelling in the southwest corner will be retained and repurposed for bat habitat and for conservation work, and the 2-hectare paddock is proposed to be developed as enhanced habitat and will include additional areas of planting belts, wildflower meadows, there's woodland planting, scrub and some water bodies. This slide shows the proposed elevations of the new dwelling. Construction materials comprise flint, stone and brick walling alongside charred wood cladding, all under a part flat green roof and a part solar standing seam pitched roof. Likewise, the same materials are proposed on the side elevations. In terms of the internal layout, the new dwelling has 3 ensuite bedrooms in this end of the building. There's a gym, snug utility boot room on this side of the building. This part contains the kitchen, dining and sitting area, and there's an office, storeroom, garage, workshop here, and off to the side is a detached building for a plant propagation area together with an area for bees, and that helps to enclose this green space in the middle, which is for protected wildlife. It's a protected wildlife space. It should be noted, though, that there is no domestic garden for the dwelling identified on the plan. This shows the proposed roof plan. It shows, you just make out the areas of green roof, and it also shows the solar ridged roof that runs at 90 degrees to the green roof. These are generated images to show what the dwelling may look like. Turning now to the existing dwelling, which is to be retained, this plan shows that a bat space will be created on this side of the building with a likely bird recovery and or additional bat area in this part of the building, with rest area and storeroom here. There's an existing shed at the back, which will also be left as wildlife habitat, and the proposal is to use the building as a bat study and conservation building. The application as submitted included an educational element, with schools being able to use the site for research. However, it's now understood from the email circulated in tabled papers that clarified that the education element of the site or use of the site will be off-site now. Your officer's assessment within your papers concludes that the proposal cannot be regarded as a policy-compliant replacement dwelling because, firstly, the existing dwelling is not being replaced. Instead, it's being retained and repurposed as habitat. Secondly, the proposed dwelling is not on an existing residential plot as expected by policy LPO4. Instead, it's on adjacent paddock land. For these reasons, the proposal is contrary to policy SPO3 of the development plan, and this is a determinative matter. In terms of whether there are any material considerations to indicate that a decision should be made contrary to the development plan, officers have assessed whether the habitat enhancements are of sufficient weight to outweigh and depart from the development plan, and have concluded that, as the habitat enhancements are not wholly dependent on the building of a new dwelling and could otherwise be delivered independently, the proposal is not compelling and does not warrant departing from a key spatial policy of the development plan, which could be materially harmful in and of itself. The recommendation is therefore one of refusal for the reasons as outlined in your report. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, very clear and detailed. So we'll now take questions from members on the presentation. Please remember questions need to be in response to what's been said, to seek further detail and to be relevant. Councillor Grandon.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask, if the application did not say replacement in the application, would a different conclusion have been made if it was maybe just a new build application type thing?
No, if it didn't say replacement. If it just was for the erection of a new dwelling, the same policies would apply insofar as policy SPO3, which is the overarching policy for new development in the district, would still indicate the same recommendation from us as officers.
Because it seemed to me that the argument was that all-around replacement rather than that it didn't comply with being a replacement building. So I just wondered if other wording might have made a difference.
No, it's the fact that replacement was mentioned in the description, that the applicant then looked at whether policy LPO4 applied, which is the replacement dwelling policy, and found that that supported the application, whereas we as officers have taken a different view, that because it's not replacing the building, which is what the policy requires, it's not a replacement dwelling, it's replacing the use that's currently on site, and would still create an additional dwelling on the site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following on from my colleague's point, if the old building was being demolished and a replacement was being sought where this new build is proposed to be, then that would be what we could be looking at under those policies. Is that correct?
That's correct, although the policy does look at, the supporting text of the policy does say that a replacement dwelling should be on the same site, and because this is beyond the residential curtilage of the existing dwelling and is on an adjacent paddock, that element of the policy doesn't sit comfortably. But in another sense, if the existing dwelling was to be demolished and a new dwelling replaced on its site, then it would be a strict replacement policy.
Well, just following on from that, that's how I'd read it. But if they'd have wanted to replace it and move it, say, further into the site where they proposed, that would be something that you would have to look at in the same light, or could there be reasons that they wanted to move it back? Would they have to prove the reason for wanting to move it back, I think is what I'm saying.
We'd have to understand the reasons for moving, but we would look at it as, you know, whether the impact was worse or better than the existing. It would be a more straightforward assessment in that sense.
And can I just follow on again? And there was no request to, or a pre-application advice given to remove the existing building and replace it there. That was never discussed or thought of?
We had pre-application advice. It may have been part of a conversation, but the main thrust of the pre-application advice was to retain the existing dwelling and to build a new one elsewhere on the site.
Councillor Maybury?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry that I missed a few of your words, but you were talking about the solar panels. Solar? Are they panels or are they tiles?
My understanding is it's an entire roof structure. It's a solar roof. It's a solar standing seam roof. So it's a pitched roof that is comprised of solar panels within the roof structure. So they don't sit on top of a roof. They're part of the body of the roof.
Okay, thank you. My question to add to that is there a battery store as well, please?
That escapes me at the moment. It might be a question for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you, Chair. I read in the pack that the applicant is proposing to get a legal covenant to protect the site in the future, and I assume this would mean that the old house, the bungalow, wouldn't ever be able to be used as a house again, and that the land of the current meadow would have to remain as wildlife habitat and wouldn't be further built on. Would this make any difference to the problem of the old house coexisting with the new house? Does that make sense?
It makes sense if we were to get beyond the planning policy position of it's not in compliance with the spatial strategy for the district. So if it were something we were to accept, then it would need to be bound together with a legal agreement to ensure that it is delivered in that way.
Councillor Maybury.
Thank you. Foolishly, I didn't ask this when we were on site today. Do we know how old the existing building is, please? It looks as though it got very old tiles on it.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would hazard a guess at 30s, 40s, 1930s, 40s, something like that.
That recent. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beer.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Just going back to my previous points, if the application, which I know isn't, was for a new build in the countryside, and we're aware of those policies, would this have got to a committee, or would this have been knocked out early on? What I'm really trying to say is that obviously our policy is not to build new big houses in the countryside, but I've always felt and disagreed with that you do need new houses, big houses in the countryside now and then.
I think you're edging into debate there, Councillor Beer.
But I'm just trying to put my reasons as to why I wanted to answer whether that would have just stopped.
Well, let's have the answer to the question.
Yeah, Councillor Beer, the reason for calling by the then Chief Planning Officer was what he described as a novel point as to whether this is really a replacement dwelling or not. So that's why it's at committee. If it had just been clearly a new dwelling, it wouldn't have been at committee. It wouldn't have come to committee. Not for that reason, anyway.
That's what I thought. Thank you. You've answered exactly.
Any other questions? Councillor Register and then Councillor Davis.
Is there any previous precedent for a building being retained for environmental uses such as this bat habitat and the replacement building argument being used, either successfully or failure?
We're not aware of one, doesn't mean there hasn't been, and there could have been in mid, and we don't know. But under the current JLP, no.
Councillor Davis.
And thank you. The supplement papers said that the education will now take place off-site. I wondered whereabouts off-site, and also if there were any numbers around expected visitors provided when the application was put in.
We don't have information about that, no.
Yeah, we can ask the applicant, although strictly speaking it's not relevant to this particular application, is it? So Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. The applicant's planning statement was quite a compelling document, quite detailed, and there's some really interesting pieces towards the end in the sort of planning conclusion. I'll just read you one point, and when I've read the point, I'd be interested to know what the area planning manager's comments will be. Under 6.4, it says, in respect, whilst the proposal may not be considered to meet policy requirements of LPO4, as a matter of principle, it is very much aligns with the aims and objectives of the policy and more clearly the wider aspirations of the development plan and the MPF when taken as a whole. And if you include that with the additional comment under 6.13, which identifies no harm across the spectrum of material consideration, my question to our planning team generally and our legal representative is, should members be minded to approve this application and overturn your recommendation, how much impact would that have upon our overall development plan, and potentially would that weaken our position if we received subsequent future applications like this?
I think one could give several sorts of answers to this. I think my honest view is that it could undermine the JLP I know members may think differently, and that's your decision. I think it was explained in the report about there are other paddocks, and there are other places with bats. There could be other sites coming up like this, and obviously what you do now today is important. This thing works on for a long time. It's 2 years old. We're probably going to have this for another 4 years. So we have to think each time, if we want to set aside a policy, we just have to be very careful. If you are convinced, members, that it's right to do it, then do it. That's fine. But do think very carefully about it. I think there is a risk of other applications like this coming in. Not a risk, a possibility of other applications might come in, but we can't know. But as I think some of the members said on site, they haven't been aware of such a proposal before, so maybe it won't happen again. We can't know.
Thank you. Councillor Wyman?
Thank you. So from a follow-up point then, that what you're saying then, that would weaken our position in relation to future applications. Would it also potentially impact on future appeal decisions? Would the inspector take into consideration the fact that we've actually changed our own plan?
I think if I were a planning agent in this district and this got approval and I supported my client's application for such an application elsewhere, I would definitely run that argument. Well, this one was allowed, so why not mine? So if we're holding a line on this, on a subsequent application, we would be undermined by this one. So this is an important decision for you members to make, to think about carefully.
Thank you.
Councillor Malvisi.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's 2 questions. One, what would the harm be if, in biodiversity terms, if we were to refuse this application? Because obviously the application is complying with the JLP in addressing issues of the environment and increasing and enhancing the biodiversity. And that is the main thread through the NPPF. So I'm a bit confused. So I'd be grateful if somebody could possibly explain why we can't be more proactive in terms of protecting our environment. Thank you.
Shall we take that one first?
Yeah.
So the harm would be to the development plan. That would be the principal harm, basically. Other harms you may think of, I think, are harder to identify. I would suggest harm to the development plan is the harm we're talking about. The NPPF also tells us to make decisions in line with the development plan unless otherwise other material considerations dictate. So that's the place that you're in. The development plan is quite a well-written document. It's signposted. So we start with SBO3 right at the start, and it's quite clear on its limitations, where things should go, where buildings should be. They should not be outside settlement boundaries unless, and then a list is given. That does take us to replacement dwellings, but we can discuss whether it's a replacement or not. We don't think it is. So at that point, you are in a planned position of not being able to support this. You then go on to other threads, other policies which talk about BNG, etc., which are quite correct. It complies with those. But if you go just by the plan, you've already got to a point where you shouldn't go any further. So you're then at other material considerations, at which point you'd bring in your NPPF paragraphs, which relate to BNG.
Do you have a second? Councillor Maybury.
Thank you, Chairman. This may be for the applicant, and I first of all asked how old the property was. But do we have a condition report of the actual property?
No reason for it.
Okay, thank you.
Public speakers. We have 2 people with us today. You're welcome. We have a supporter, Jill Perkins, so I'd like to ask you to go first, if that's all right. And you've got 3 minutes, which Claire is going to time with her egg timer. Well done. Thank you. Here we go.
I'm the Chief Executive of the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, and despite our name, we also cover a much wider range of flora and fauna. If the project goes ahead, it is the Trust that will project manager, working with a unique collaboration of wildlife charities, including the Suffolk Wildlife Trust. I think I'd like to spend a little bit of time why this opportunity is unique and why this site and not others. The project has been conservation-led. The project's priority is homes and food for wildlife, because we all know nature is in crisis. The site is very well suited, as we can start with a blank canvas on what has been an untreated horse paddock for many years. The project is an opportunity, creating a wildlife habitat from scratch, a nursery for endangered flora, and a recovery unit for wildlife, along with an opportunity to experiment with flora and fauna habitats to see what works best in our changing climate. Monitoring progress to provide information for other ecologists, visitors will not be possible, but we will be able to give off-site talks and produce videos for schools. There'll be some work experience opportunities for ecology students. Using the buildings and the house itself to see how wildlife can live successfully in harmony with next to humans, we will be involved in the detailed design of the construction. The project will also benefit the surrounding area, which includes a large organic farm and ancient woodland. We'll have a 25-year management contract, which will be fully funded with an establishment of a trust fund. The agreement will include legal safeguards to preserve the site in perpetuity. I have known the applicant for several years, and colleagues from other charities have worked with him in various countries for over 30 years. His record in conservation speaks for itself, and not just in funding. Indeed, we've struggled to find a cost-effective, simple bumblebee nest, giving protection against badgers and heat waves, and the applicant has provided us with a prototype. I think the project goal of seeing how buildings and homes can be suitable for both humans and wildlife is of particular interest. The interaction of humans and wildlife is an increasing challenge. More work is needed on practical solutions. We've all read about the impact of climate change and loss of species. Sometimes it's difficult to grasp the practical effect on a smaller scale. Suffolk is important for soft fruit production and tomato production. In 2023, it was necessary to import to the UK nearly 100,000 commercially farmed bumblebees just to keep the tomato industry alive, because bumblebees are the only insect that can pollinate tomatoes, and we simply do not have enough. I hope you can agree precedent risk is minimal. Few landowners can demonstrate the same professional expertise and experience, conservation partnerships, legal mechanisms and financial provision to enable such a project. This makes this project genuinely site-specific, exceptional and innovative. It'll be a tragic loss to wildlife if this does not go ahead. Thank you for listening to me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Jill? Yes, Councillor Mabry.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, and thank you for coming today. You said that the land is untreated. Does that mean it's organic, and is that over a period of years? I don't want to give you a specific period, although I know it, just so I don't put words into your mouth. Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, it's not organic. To claim that land is organic has to have special dispensations on it over a period of time. And as I understand it, this is not qualified as organic. Untreated in respect that it hasn't had fertilisers or some pesticides or insecticides on it, as far as I know.
And just to come back, for what period of time, please?
I'm not sure on what period of time. I think it's probably, do you know what period of time?
Yes, can I mention?
Yeah.
There's sort of 2 points. It's, so probably from when the bungalow was built. Sorry. I think it's probably from the. Prior to that, it's unknown.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You talked about the nursery for flora. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Mostly it's by ecologist project officer who will have the full details of that. But we are looking much more at climate resistant planting, deep rooted plants, because our climate is changing. We are getting droughts. So this is another example of where we can do some really good experiments about what works well for our future. And it's our future that's really important on this point.
Councillor Grandin.
The points you're talking about, are these all going to be done on site?
Sorry, which points?
Well, all the things that you've been talking about,
Yes,
apart from the education,
yes,
which we know
all
is
done
off-site.
on site. Yes, all the conservation work is going to be done on site.
In the existing building that's still there?
No, the existing building is going to be a bat roost and...
So where will this be done? In the new building?
No, we're going to have a sort of nursery. For Flora, there's a nursery which doesn't require a building, so that'll be part of the landscape. So areas where we can grow new things. So that'll be in the landscape area.
Within the current paddock?
Yes, within the current paddock, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The education side of it and the fact-finding of the future will be carried on there. What involvement of education locally, schools, groups, activities would be involved? Is that open to them, or is this a closed thing?
No, the applicant would really like to have an off-site educational hub, and I think somebody made a question about where that would be, and from the applicant's point of view, it's where it's best suited. Nothing has been decided or arranged, but to have that education hub open to all schools, and it's something that we've already done in the trust. And so we're building on what we already know how to do with our education work for the schools. But no, we want to encourage the next generation. These are the important ones to take forward. The environment underpins everything. We've really got to get that value of nature really embedded in the next generation.
Any other questions, please? Councillor Malvisi.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm the ward member for Long Melford, so I fully understand an educational hub because we've run in the past several educational hubs down at the country park in Long Melford, which for some reason Babergh doesn't recognise as an LNR, but Suffolk does.
Okay.
So,
do you have a question that's relevant to the point in hand, please?
My question, well, actually, I was going to say, would you like to come and talk to me about my country park? So that I can get
Perhaps
something
outside
done
the meeting. Outside the meeting.
after the
for that
meeting.
one.
A point, I'm sorry, but I think this is a point that needs to be raised, is that Councillor Malvisi, as much as she's saying about really good works, she should have declared that as an interest, and she is actually trying to, what shall I say, counter favouritism from the speaker, and I do object to that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I did cut off that line of questioning because it's not relevant to the point at hand.
Can I apologise to the chair?
You certainly can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. To our second speaker, who is Craig Beach, an agent for the applicant. You've also got 3 minutes, so here we go.
Good afternoon. In the UK planning system, decisions on planning applications must generally align with the local development plan, unless there are material considerations that indicate otherwise. These material considerations are factors relevant to the specific planning application and can include national planning policy and other relevant issues like the impact on the local area. The NPPF provides further guidance on what is a material consideration, and it notes environmental considerations, impacts on the environment such as air quality, biodiversity, ecology and climate change. Seldom have we seen a project with such wide-ranging beneficial ecological aims. This is a scheme that works with several charities to create 5 acres of wildlife haven. It is a lifelong dream of the owner to create this habitat and this site was specifically chosen after a long search because of its potential. Unploughed, with neighbouring ancient woodland and surrounded by organic farming. The reason we are relocating the house to the north is to allow the bungalow to be retained as an existing bat roost. The building is being gifted to wildlife, and therefore the owner needs a new single-storey home. The Bat Conservation Trust will manage the bungalow. The owner could have chosen to simply extend the bungalow upwards and outwards under permitted development rights. He could have created a much larger house than we are asking for here. Instead, he chose the more complex route of planning approval and a new house positioned to limit its impact upon the countryside, as he is committed to environmental and ecological benefits being created, even though this comes with greater cost to himself. The owner plans to immediately gift the house and land to the charitable trust, with the aim that this site is retained as a wildlife haven in perpetuity. This will be legally binding and irreversible via the Section 106 and his will. He will occupy the home himself. A draft Section 106 has been issued to the Council for review, and the Section 106 will ensure the existing bungalow can never again be occupied as a dwelling and will only be retained as bat and wildlife habitat. The house will be exemplary in itself, passive house standard utilising local materials and incorporating wildlife habitat throughout its structure, walls and roof. The owner is funding the wildlife habitat privately, a wildlife project manager, and supporting the Bumblebee and Bat Conservation Trust in implementing and maintaining this new wild landscape. All education will be off-site, so the site remains undisturbed for wildlife. There are no objections to this project. It is supported by all consultees, parish, neighbours and various experts, wildlife trusts nationally and charities locally, one of which has chosen to speak in support here today. As a committee, decisions should be taken in line with the development plan unless material considerations dictate otherwise. Here you have a scheme where the material considerations do dictate otherwise. The benefits are overwhelming, unique, and will significantly contribute locally to wildlife, flora and fauna. It does not set a precedent. Very few people could or would commit to these laudable ecological aims. We ask you to consider these wide-ranging benefits. This is exactly the sort of project we should be building, exactly the type of house we should create, exactly the rewilded landscape we should be establishing. Please weigh up these material considerations and support this landmark exemplary project and grant approval today. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? Councillor Beer.
Mr. Chairman, I have several. Would you like me to do them all in one go, or would you like me to do a couple and then let everybody else have a go?
I think we'll share it around, if that's all right. So if you'd like to give us your first question.
Yes, certainly. My first question was from earlier. Is there a battery store to go with the solar panels?
There is, yes. So there's a solar roof. So the whole roof is solar roof, which is a new system that we're trialling, Austrian system. And that generates all its power that goes to a battery store on site. Yeah.
And the battery store is on site? Is it in the...
Battery store will be on site, likely in the garage under the new building regulations, and likely 2 units that will then provide electricity and prioritise on-site use.
Okay. My second question. Yeah, absolutely. Carry on.
Councillor Beer.
Well, I think I've only got one. My question is, you mentioned that this isn't a big house in the countryside. I mean, I think big houses in the countryside are acceptable, but you're not talking of that size. So this is more moderate and not actually a replacement, but can you just elaborate for me as to how big it is somehow?
So I think the house is around about 250 square metres with the garaging, so larger than the bungalow you've got on site at the moment, and it's necessary because the bungalow is gifted to bat habitat. That's the only reason the house is being built.
And bedroom space? 4?
4 bedrooms, I think.
So
3,
it's
4 bedrooms.
Just a large house.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Register.
There are existing people living in the cottage. You were talking about moving people. I'm concerned. The question I ask: why build a new building? Are the people moving from the cottage to the new building, or is this envisaged as a completely new set of occupants for the new building?
So the way to think of it really is it's like you or I would buy a house. It's a site with a house on it, and the site was sold to our applicant as it could have been sold to anyone via Rightmove. He could have lived in the bungalow as his main residence and instead has chosen to demolish the bungalow to create the bat habitat. There's already bats, if you look at the report, in the bungalow, and therefore he's living in the new house as a replacement for that bungalow.
Councillor Maybury.
This may sound very strange to you, but there is a reason that I ask it. Looking at the plans, which look quite amazing, of the new property, why was the property, if they're so eco-friendly, why was the property not dug into the ground a little?
It's an interesting point. I mean, you could dig a property into the ground and create an earth-sheltered dwelling. Digging a property into the ground is quite disruptive in itself and generally involves quite a substantial amount of concrete to create a sheltered dwelling. We did have a landscape consultant who has submitted a report as part of this, the LVA, who worked with us looking at positions that on the site that would have the least impact. And that's kind of how the position was chosen. And then we've worked and updated the scheme with your planning team to reduce the impact of that house through reductions in height.
Thank you. I asked about where education would take place because I was thinking about visitor numbers originally and envisaging lots of visitors. Where's the education? I think you answered the question about where the education would take place. You haven't figured that out yet. But in the Section 106 agreement, if they were minded to approve, would you put something in to ensure that education continued off-site in perpetuity? Okay. And also, what's the size of the area?
Of the site? The site area, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in total the site is just a fraction under 5 acres. It's 4.97 acres, I think.
But yeah, I can't remember that off the top of my head. But the house and the garden, the bit you're screening off, how much is that going to be? What size?
Well, there is no garden to this scheme. It's all dedicated to wildlife habitat. So the house is 250 square metres as a fraction of those 5 acres.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Maybury.
Thank you. I did ask this earlier of our officer, and you may be able to answer this. The building that's going to become the bat habitat, what sort of condition is that in? I'm being really careful. When we talk about 1950s, we're talking about probably building materials that we wouldn't use these days. What's the condition, please?
So if you're talking about asbestos, there was an asbestos survey, I believe, carried out when you purchased the site, so I don't think that's an issue. The building itself is, it has to be admitted, is fine. Somebody could move into there, they would have to renovate it, it would need to be insulated, it's uninsulated, it would need work, but it's a habitable building, and he could have chosen to live in that building, but it's his commitment to bats and bat habitat that has led him elsewhere.
Holt isn't with us, but he has sent a statement by email, which Claire's just going to read out for us.
Thank you, Chair. So this is from Councillor Holt. Apologies I can't be with you this afternoon. I would like to thank the Chair and all those committee members that attended this morning's site visit. I hope you will agree it was worth it, having the opportunity to fully see and appreciate what this proposal aims to deliver to the whole site. This, I believe, is a unique development in not only its design but also its environmental benefits. It's not something we see very often, and I believe it needs to be viewed in this way. It is for you members to judge this application on its impressive merits, which are exceptional. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. To the debate phase, where you have the chance to express an opinion. Just before we start that, I'm going to ask the area planning manager to clarify for us what the decision is that we need to make. And I would like our debate to focus on that point, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's probably advantageous to just structure this very slightly, if we may. We could talk about the point about the policy, whether it complies with the policy or not, whether it's replacement dwelling or not. I think we could probably get past that quickly enough, and then you can move on to the other material considerations. Officers believe it's contrary to policy and therefore would be refused, and then you can go on to talk about other material considerations. So if you just want to talk briefly about the policy issue, is it a replacement dwelling? Then we can perhaps move on to the other stuff.
Thank you very much. So if we start with LPO4, residential extensions and conversions, the application contends that it is a replacement dwelling. The officers disagree. Do members have a view, please? Councillor Register.
I think I understand that the new building has to be quite a way away from the old building because of the sensitivities of the bat habitat and other habitats within the old building could be affected by humans living in close proximity to it. So therefore, whilst it isn't a replacement building, and especially because the old building isn't being demolished, it's I think its offsetness is justified in terms of what the old building is going to be used for, and to allow that to be done.
Councillor Grandin.
I suppose, in a way, we're having to debate what is the council's priorities in some respects, in that we are, as a council, are trying to look at green and biodiversity and all of these kind of issues, but on the other hand, we've got the local plan, and I think we need to be guided perhaps on what our priority needs to be, because I think it's quite hard for us because we're wanting to do the right thing as a committee, and I think we're all feeling, or some of us may be feeling a little bit torn as to which path to go, because we can see the logic, but then there's the other side as well. So it's quite a difficult path for us to decide on. I know that's why we're here. But it's, our hearts are taking us one way, but we're being told to go another way. Perhaps we need some guidance.
If I may, Chair, yes. I think what you're talking about there is the merits of the scheme per se, and I think what you're suggesting is you can see both sides, which is understandable. I just wanted members to be clear, LPO4 does talk about where the building to be replaced. It refers to the building to be replaced, and therefore it struggles to actually qualify as complying with that policy. That doesn't then stop you talking about what's good about the scheme later on, but I just wanted to get past that one point about that policy, what it says. And if members are happy to concur it doesn't comply with the policy, then you can move on to all the juicy stuff.
Wyman, then Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Chair. I've been a councillor for 2.5 years or so. I've sat in this committee for about the same time. I've never come across an application which has so many merits and has so few objections. And it seems almost compelling. The data, our witnesses, and the whole process. But we're in here to make a decision based on it's like a hierarchy of needs or a hierarchy of policy, and to go against our own policy at the is it a replacement, isn't it a replacement, in my personal opinion, is the wrong thing to do, because there are lots of other commendable things underneath that, but as far as the policy is concerned, And as far as we're concerned, having made that policy, we should try and stick and not be, and I don't want to really use this word, but slightly greenwashed over the application.
Thank you. Just to add to what you've said, I'm looking in the report, page 22 near the bottom. It says section 38 bracket 6 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, etc., made in accordance with the plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So that provides a route for the plan to be disregarded, which is, of course, the crucial issue that we're deciding. Councillor Beer?
I'll refrain from the moment because you've partly answered it, but I'll just wait a moment.
Councillor Maybury.
Thank you, Chairman. I can hear what everyone is saying here. We're not in debate yet, are we? Yes. We are in we are debating. Right. Well, I didn't hear that at all. I thought we were talking about just the merits of our policies, etc. Looking at this, I can actually see the merits of sticking to policy. I can also see the merits of what would be available to us. The condition of the property, I think, is crucial because it's all very well to say that it can be refurbished. However, there are times when trying to refurbish uses too much carbon and it's best to leave the building alone. I actually think that this is very innovative. The proposal is very innovative. I think it is of merit. I think the applicant should be applauded. I think our speakers should be applauded for what they have said. I would actually vote against the officer's recommendation and would approve this because I think we need to show that we do think outside the box. We do think about the environment. We do think about the education of others. We do think about our young people. And we can actually manage these things if we put our minds to it. The question of HGVs, having experience of building a property, you can request small HGVs. You can manage them correctly. I never had a problem at all. And the lane past my house was actually narrower than my drive. So it can be managed. So I would be voting for the proposal. I am sorry to our planning officer, as much as I respect what Linda does, I am against your recommendation. I think we should bite the bullet. We should be on the front of the newspaper. We should be saying, this is what we're going to do in the future. We are going to be proactive. We are going to try and do our best for our creation.
Okay, thank you. Second. I think Councillor Beer is now exercising his right, so we'll go Councillor Carruthers, Councillor Davis after that. Okay.
I do apologise to you for that. No, it was just that following on from what my colleague says, and going back to the point about replacement, I think all of us do understand the policy, and I accept that this isn't a replacement. But I think there's merits and public benefits which outweigh all this. And from that point of view, I'm inclined to agree with my colleague beside me. There are lots of things in its favour, and I don't think it should fall because of the policy, which I think the Chief Planning Officers did say that this was possibly the first one in this area or the second, and it's not likely there's going to be many in the future. We don't know, but I do think that this would be the right sort of time to show that we are prepared to bend. When we set these policies, we didn't know as much as we know now, and my Green colleagues in this room know a lot more about it than I do, and I would have thought they'd be jumping up and down on this, and I wanted to support it when I read all the papers and what have you, but wound it all up, I wasn't sure. But hearing some of the views, and now hearing that the replacement may not be a replacement, but it's not going to be a large new country house in the countryside, and that the educational sides and all the other things, I think there's a lot of merit that we should approve, be minded to approve this, members. And I just want you to think about it, and I'll leave it to my colleagues to make their minds up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carruthers is next.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I just want to say that this is a unique situation, as we all know, and the chances of somebody else coming forward with an application like this, who cares as much about wildlife as this chap obviously does, must be pretty slim. And I'm wondering whether, would there be any, I'm trying to think if there'd be any other situation where somebody might buy a little bungalow with a paddock and then try and use, if we were to approve it, if in future somebody did this and they wanted to use the land in a different way that wouldn't benefit wildlife, this is what, how could that happen? I'm not making much sense, I don't think, but so yeah, I mean it's a really, really interesting project. But I can't see, it'd be very rare, I'd imagine, for somebody to do this again. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're right. We should be looking at this case on its individual merits in this particular instance, which I think are certainly unusual, if not unique. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. This is a bit head versus heart application, I think, but the piece of it that does worry me is that it does technically go against policy, but the scheme has huge benefits. But the bit that worries me more is around precedent. Going against the local plan could open up the doors to other developments that on the surface might appear beneficial, but may not be. But not just going against the local plan, but developments could potentially go against people's neighbourhood plans. And we spent, a lot of people spent a lot of time doing neighbourhood plans, and a lot of people are reviewing them at the moment. But that said, I don't see many developers doing this kind of development. So I'm edging towards, I actually think this is good, but I still have that little niggle of worry about going against local plans and neighbourhood plans. I'd be interested to hear other councillors' perspectives on that.
Thank you. Just on a point of information, I think I'm right in saying there is no made neighbourhood plan for Shimpling, is that right? Okay, there is no made plan for Shimpling.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've agreed with just about everybody who's spoken so far. Long Melford has just recently gone against its own neighbourhood plan in moving beyond the build-up boundary. But I would, just bear with me. Oh, can you ask somebody else, because I've lost what I was going to say. Can you?
Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to concur with Councillor Davis's reservations on this. This is a project that has huge merits individually, but to be going against set plans when, this is something that, Rachel Reeves will be jumping up and down, gosh, it's going to be a development because of bats and newts, not instead of bats and newts. It has great merit, and, there is a great deal to be said about the uniqueness, although we have seen, anybody who's seen something like Grand Designs has seen similar, I'll use the word grandiose projects here, because to me, this may not be an enormous mansion, but it is by no means a modest dwelling replacing another modest dwelling. Let's be clear about that. And secondly, the idea of going against a plan and setting a precedent, who is to say, okay, so notwithstanding Mr. Buchanan's huge, very great credentials in the world of ecology, who is to say that somebody might not be able to then say, okay, I'll get an ecological consultant, let's come up with something so that we can get round policy, the joint local plan here, and establish policy and see these things, these applications mushrooming. That is a huge, I think that is a great, great worry. So thank you.
Councillor Moisey, can we come back to you? Or? Yes. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hear everybody, but the LPO4, is that the local plan? I think that's what that stands for. But may I remind everybody that at COP15, the Biodiversity Summit included commitment that will maintain, enhance and restore ecosystems, including halting species of extinction and maintaining genetic diversity. And I have quoted that from the supplementary planning document that Babergh produced to run along beside the JLP. I also believe that when you read the NPPF, you will subconsciously, granted, recognise that there is an ethos and a thread through the whole document that requests that you are presumptive in your approach to maintaining and enhancing biodiversity. We can establish the biodiversity level of the site of the application, but can we determine how much will be lost by not granting this application? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mabry is next, then Councillor Collins.
Thank you. Just coming back, and I hear what my colleagues are talking about keeping to policy. However, how many times have we made a decision and an inspector has overturned it, which does annoy me at times, but there we go, that's one thing. The other is this, I am now reminded that I do actually have a similar site in my own ward, which is in Long Melford. No, it's not in Long Melford, that's Councillor Malvisi. in Little Waldingfield, which is on the site of the old original Holbrook Hall, the ancient site. This failed at its first attempt and it was granted on its second, and it's exactly the same sort of scenario. Because the building isn't there anymore, the original building isn't there anymore, but they've built a lovely new eco-friendly house on it, and the wildlife there is unbelievable, and they do open it to the public because they can at certain times of the year. And this does actually enhance the biodiversity and the education for everyone who lives around it. So I would say that there is another one.
Yeah, I just wanted to stick up for the JLP there, Councillor. Yeah, you're right, we have had our policies overturned at appeal, but the JLP, the current JLP, stood up pretty well so far. SBO3, I think we had 2 cases where the inspector disagreed with us, and on both of them we were a bit stymied by the history of the site itself, which didn't help us. But I think in terms of the local plan, it's holding firm at the moment, so I would have faith in it.
But I think in fairness on that, they haven't had as many applications come through like we used to have in the old days.
Right. Councillor Carruthers is next, followed by Councillor Grandham.
Thank you, Chair. I think this house, this application, the difference between this one and other, say, grand designs, I know what you mean about grand designs projects, is the research that's going to be done alongside it. So it's not just the house and the wildlife habitat, which is great, but it's the research into building, I think they're building various different things for bees to live in, and the research on the bats and how they use the building. So there could be some really valuable data produced from this that could be used elsewhere for other developments, and I think that's an important point to make, really, that most houses, most eco houses, don't include a scientific project attached to them.
Councillor Grandon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suppose the difficulty is it isn't a replacement building. So that puts us in a dilemma. And perhaps we ought to, I don't know if we need to ask the applicant or just speculate amongst ourselves what would happen if, whether any of this project would continue if we were to refuse it, if the biodiversity aspects would happen if we were to refuse it. And also, why did the applicant look into this before the site was purchased with his plans? So I've got more questions than answers, really, but I'm finding it quite a dilemma as to, you know, sticking with our policies or going with the very favourable things that they want to do on the site. Are we allowed to ask the applicant any questions, or have we passed that stage, or does anyone, or do officers
Yes,
know?
the applicant actually isn't here, it's the applicant's agent.
Representative,
But
yes.
if you're willing to have another go at answering questions, we can do that. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think going back to the point of kind of why he didn't simply just move into the bungalow and live there and just wild landscape the site, he would have lost the bat habitat, and he would be living in a bungalow where there's already bats and we want to encourage more bats, and he's gifting a building. It's very rare that somebody would gift their house to wildlife. So I think it's a key part of this, and there's been involvement from Bat Conservation Trusts, Suffolk Wildlife Trust, others in this whole process that have guided the design of this site and all elements of it. And I think if he wasn't to get the dwelling, which is going to be left to charity, this is going to be to the benefit of everyone ultimately. When he passes on, then it wouldn't take place. He was very careful in the selection of this site because of the surrounding benefits, the ancient woodland. He looked at lots of sites, not just in Babergh, but across the east of England. So this is an important point to make, that this site was key to those environmental benefits, and the way it's been set up is that every possible benefit has been squeezed out of this site for every different charitable trust.
Okay, Councillor Osborne and Councillor Register.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been concerned by this ever since I made the site visit this morning, but there are many eminent people within the ecology and biodiversity that have looked at this, and I admire them intensely. But the problem is that we have a policy here, and I agree with Councillor Davis and Councillor Wyman. It does open a door that, you know, our policies would have to be changed completely and to allow this, and we would lose more open space as it stands. So I'm afraid I do come down on the side of not wishing to see any building on this area, whether it be temporary or not. And incidentally, the road down from that in Rectory Lane, we went away this morning, a huge van was coming up to deliver. I would have expected, if this is going to be open to the public, as I expect you're going to, no? Right, okay. So you would have, in my opinion, you've got a problem there on that alone. It does state something about people visiting that area. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Register.
Okay, I'm sort of minded to think that the material considerations offset the policy, but I'm also concerned, quite rightly, that this could set a precedent for people ignoring our development, our JLP. Is there any way we could add a condition if this committee decided to approve this planning application, that, for example, I'm wondering if all environmental elements and benefits are realised, so as a condition of approval? Would that help? Because therefore, if somebody tried to use it as an example to try and get round our JLP, they'd have to sort of match that level of environmental benefits and elements. I'm just thinking, it's a concern of mine. It's half a dozen of one, as it were.
We'd secure that by a legal agreement rather than a condition. It'd be like a BNG, really, basically, that sort of model.
Thank you. Are there any other points to be made in debate, please? Okay. So thank you very much for everyone for your contributions. We now get to the ticklish problem of drafting a proposal. I think if I can summarise the mood of the meeting, I think I would say that we all appreciate the environmental benefits of this application, but there is more divided opinion on whether those should, as material considerations, outweigh our written policy, particularly SPO3, location of sustainable development. So that's the thing that we need to decide. How should we do the proposal? I did scribble something down. Shall I read it out?
We need somebody to make it.
Right. Okay. Councillor Babergh, just hang on a sec. Councillor Grandon has a question.
Thank you. Is it possible for our area planning manager or lawyer to, I know it has been outlined a little bit to us, but explain the implications again for us?
The implications of deciding to grant permission?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I know it has been said a bit, but I'd like it reiterated.
So if you're going for an approval, the risk there is a judicial review. It doesn't seem that's likely, so that's what could happen. So you have to very strongly state why you think this should be approved, basically. You have some clearly evidenced reasons to go against the officer recommendation. That's your job to do that. The risk, the only risk really, I think, is the one which has been aired by a few councillors about it dents the JLP. You know, it's a time we set the JLP aside. Why do we set it aside? What we do next time? So that's the risk. That's the risk of a harm. Those are the two things you want to think about. You're harming the JLP, but if you still wish to approve it, evidence your reasons for overturning the officer's recommendation. Refer to policies, I should say. Refer to policies.
Myself on, yes, I agree. I don't think I need to add anything. Yeah.
Okay, has that answered your question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Mabry, you had your hand up.
Yes, I would like to propose that we approve the application. I travelled light today, so I do not have my serious paperwork with me, so I'd have to hope that the area planning manager would write what is definitely needed. But I am proposing that we approve it. The merits being that the cause of the environment outweigh any other in this instance, and that it should be this instance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal which is to grant permission in this particular case.
Chair, may I just, I think I understand Councillor Mabry, but may I just clarify that you accept, if I've understood correctly, you accept the officer's advice that it's not a replacement dwelling, therefore conscious of policy, but you believe that material considerations outweigh that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so is everyone clear what the proposal is? Okay, so yes, I'll... Okay, so I'll just repeat what I've just heard, which is Councillor Maybury proposes that we grant permission for this application because material considerations related to environmental enhancement outweigh the development plan, both SPO3 and LPO4, in this particular case. Yeah? Okay, would someone like to second that? Okay, Councillor Beer to second.
And the reasons I would add to that is the educational reasons, the benefits to the general public. They're all things that we can take into consideration, and I'd like them to be included.
Thank you. Councillor Grandin, do you want to come back with something? You sure? Okay. Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you. Can I just add to Councillor Beer's list also the benefits to wildlife and the benefits to scientific research?
Okay. Right.
Or do you want to just talk to me?
Yeah, I did just want to talk to you, actually, but anyway.
If we could just talk about this a little bit more, I think just any more flesh on the bones would be helpful. Also, we need to talk about, before we go to a vote, we need to talk about other parts of the recommendation relating to legal agreements and also to conditions. So I think we're a little way off the vote yet.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. So, can
Sorry. I think you said the calls of the environment. Did you C-A-L-L-S or calls?
Sorry?
Did you say calls or calls? C-A-U-S-E, okay. The cause of the environment outweigh the departure from the plan in this instance, and then to that, Councillor Beer added educational benefits to the public, and also Councillor Carruthers added benefits to the environment. That's what we have so far.
And to scientific research.
And scientific research, yeah.
Okay. So should we add, as you've already mentioned, that we accept that LPO4 replacement buildings is
yes,
not
whilst it's
engaged.
contrary to the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not engaged.
Yeah.
But material considerations outweigh that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Davis.
Just having had a quick scan of policies, could we say that LPO4 is outweighed by LP16, which is biodiversity, and to a lesser extent LP15, which is environmental protection? And with respect to conditions, could we say something about, I think we already got the word in perpetuity in there, but make reference to, ongoing education. And I was thinking that the hopefully increasing value, biodiversity value would be displayed over time, so that would need to be proven at intervals, which I think is actually covered by some of the biodiversity net gain criteria anyhow.
That would be in the legal agreement. That element would be in the legal agreement,
yep.
Section 106. And you mentioned LP16 and you said two policies that outweighed LP4.
LP15, environmental protection and consideration. Okay. It's sort of slightly oblique, but it's still got items in there that I think are relevant to this.
Yeah, okay. I've also got SPO9, enhancing the environment, as a policy which would support granting permission. Can I throw in LP23 as well, sustainable construction and design? Is that all right? Yeah?
Not necessarily overriding any democracy, but just to say, I'm looking at Mark as well, that what the High Court and the Court of Appeal have said is when you are doing a planning decision, you read the policies of the plan as a whole. Sometimes they pull in different directions and you just try and come to a sensible conclusion about what the plan as a whole is saying. And I think Mark would agree LPO4 is a quite plainly worded policy that the author of it and your council, when you adopted it a couple of years ago, knew all the other parts of it. I think I've just got a slight, I absolutely understand where the proposer and seconder are coming from, but I would have some reservation about if we're saying material considerations outweigh it, then we should probably stick to that. What do you think, Mark?
That would be, you're suggesting maybe paragraphs from the NPPF?
Yes.
I think the particular circumstance of the applicant, I'm a little bit nervous about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think because planning is land use related rather than, I mean, there can be personal permissions, but unusual. So the particular circumstance of the applicant, not, but paragraphs of the NPPF, more details about what's being offered, that sort of thing. What Ian's suggesting is that SPO3 and LPO4, that they're wayfinder policies, basically. They're saying you don't go any further. So at that point, you then go to other material considerations. And sure, these other ones can be referenced, but I think paragraphs of the NPPF, basically, and just the merits of this scheme, basically, without necessarily always referring to a policy, because otherwise those aren't supposed to outweigh the big policies.
Yes, Councillor Maybury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I agree with what everyone has been saying. However, in conditions, could we also have that small HGVs will be used? Please.
There is in the planning statement amongst the documents a traffic management plan which makes precisely that point. So I don't think it necessarily needs another condition. It's already in the documents.
Well, I think we ought to enhance that.
We don't have a list of conditions, obviously, because it was a negative recommendation, but we do actually, because Linda's prepared them. So I think, I don't know how you want to do this. I could just go verbatim, or do you want it to be shared in writing with the members? What's the best way of doing this?
Sure, that's what's that called.
Yeah, there's
Are they in the
16.
agenda?
No, because they weren't part of the recommendation.
No,
they're just
right.
in the chiller in case we need to.
Right, in which case, let's defrost them and let's hear what we've got.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
were you
we've got-
accepting that, or what's happening?
I think for the minute, if you just hear what it is, and then you can do all that afterwards. Yeah. Councillor Grandin.
Councillor Grandin.
Should we be looking beyond this applicant, stroke owner, and saying that the land and back building and so on should be retained, I don't know if you can say in perpetuity or for a certain period of time?
If you look at the recommendation, which was for refusal, at the foot of that page, you'll see reference to what we would defend and ask for at appeal. So those are the same things we'd now ask for. There's reference to the existing house having its residential rights being extinguished, and there's also reference to the land, and it doesn't explicitly say it, we can tighten up the wording, but the house itself being given over to the sustainability project. And so it's all in the recommendation at the end. If you look past where it says refusal,
I missed that then.
wording is there. Members, if you go to
So that more or less says that then?
Yeah, that's what we would have asked for at appeal.
So in perpetuity? Or?
It would run with, excuse me, Chair.
Yes,
it would run with the land if we had a legal agreement under Section 106.
Top of page 31.
Thank you.
I think we might have gone a little bit beyond, sorry, we've sort of drifted into conditions. I don't know whether we can have a little bit more about reasons for approval, which I can add, which don't necessarily relate to policies, because it's other material considerations. So, got so far, if you just slim it down, we've got, whilst conscious of the plan, the cause of the environment outweigh the departure from the plan in this instance. Educational benefits to the public, benefits to the environment, and scientific research. That's what we've got so far. Is there anything else you wanted to add to it?
Councillor Beer.
I'm just concerned, and I heard you say about weight, but quite often when we're discussing this type of applications, we say that the weight is taken into consideration. So I think between you and the solicitor, you were deciding that we shouldn't use this word of weight, where we do use it. I mean, the public benefits do outweigh the disadvantage, those other reasons that some of my colleagues have mentioned.
I think Ian will explain exactly what, no, you do use the word weight, but Ian will explain what we do with our policies in that consideration.
I didn't want to go into a great deal of detail, but I think I need to. Just to give you a totally different example that ended up in the Court of Appeal, there's a case in Cornwall a few years ago that got a lot of discussion where it was originally the council gave permission for some caravan park and lost in the High Court, but won in the Court of Appeal. And it was a departure, it was said to be a departure from policy that was unjustified and unexplained. And the Court of Appeal, as it were, let them off and said, no, it's all right, because what they had, Cornwall had policies saying we want to encourage tourism and therefore caravan sites were a good thing. And they had policies saying we want to defend our beautiful county, which means they're not always a good thing. And the Court of Appeal said, well, that's two policies going in the opposite direction. You've just got to make a sensible decision. Say, well, in this case, it is all right. I'm sort of paraphrasing a lot, but you get the point. But my worry about this case is that I don't think this is a Cornwall type case. Was called Cornwall and Corbett. It's not a Cornwall and Corbett case where you've got equal things pulling in opposite directions. You've got LP04 and SP03 are plain and fairly absolute policies. And I think the policies that encourage biodiversity are quite right and proper, but they were the author of the plan, which is you, but you endorsing your officers, knew perfectly well what you were saying, that yes, we like that biodiversity, net gain and things to help climate control, but we're not allowing this sort of thing except in limited circumstances. So I was just concerned that the framing of decision, the proposal framed by Councillor Maybe could be perfectly lawful as a decision, but I would prefer if we didn't use the policies. You've got to make it for decisions in two parts. I think you're quite right, Chairman. Is it in accordance with policy, i.e. the policies of the development plan? There's no neighbourhood plan, we've checked. Read as a whole, yes or no? And we think no. Is it outweighed by material considerations? Councillor Maybury and Councillor Beer think it is. So I think that's how I would suggest it's framed, by policy without too much complication and then material considerations. So I hope that's not too...
No, that sounds perfectly clear. Thank you very much.
Yes, I understand and I see where you're coming from, but and the policies were designed by us, but things move on. Governments have decreed we should take more concern in certain things, heating, biodiversity, green issues are much greater now than they were 2 years ago. So I think that does answer some of what you were saying. And I think we can say that, this is where the benefits to the public come, because it's greater now. And in 2 years' time, well, a year's time, there'll be even more things coming out that they'll say should be in these categories. They're not in our policies, perhaps, but we've got to be looking to the future and being realistic. I'm not saying, well, you won't allow me to have all my new houses built in the countryside, but this is something you can go along with. So I do honestly think that we're making it very, very difficult. And I often think back that we put lots of conditions on because we don't want to give the proposal that that is being proposed. So I respectfully say to you that we have to add on these new things because the world's developing. And so I think they should all be there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So in the interest of moving along, do you have a proposal for us that you can read out, Mark?
I'd ask if we can have...
Sorry? Or the wording.
Yeah.
It's the wording that we're after, which is what we're going to vote on.
Yeah, a little bit more about this site, why this site itself. That'd be quite useful if there's anything about the site intrinsically which lends itself to this decision, if you can think about anything like that to put in, if we do have another one like this. What's special about this site?
I think Councillor Carruthers has an idea.
Thank you. The applicant or the applicant's agent has said that the site was chosen because it suited the aims of the project to increase biodiversity and for the scientific research around building the house and the land and managing the land for wildlife. Something that I think maybe we could add is the government's 30 by 30 for nature recovery, so 30% of land and sea to be improved or regenerated for wildlife. I can't remember the exact wording, by 2020, by 2030 even. Sorry, anxious. So could we add something about the 30 by 30 nature recovery? I can look it up to get better wording.
I'd personally be a bit nervous about that. That sounds a bit more like a strategic level, maybe a policy-based thing rather than on an individual application basis, because I can see what's going to happen if we start shouting that one out. Yeah. But something about the site. I mean, so you said the site suits the project because, did somebody mention about the trees, the maturity of the land? Yeah.
There's the woodland next to it is a triple SI. So there'd be good connectivity from the woodland to the site and to the countryside beyond.
Thank you. Councillor Maybury?
Yes, the hedge lines were also mentioned, and the fact that the land is untreated, because that's what I tried to draw out of our visitors today, and I think that is really important because there are very few sites around that has not had pesticides and fertilisers and goodness knows what else put on it in the last few decades.
So we're adding connectivity to the SSI. We're adding the untreated nature of the site. Any other offers, please? Things about the site in particular.
Yes, it was the corridors, wasn't it? That's the word for it. I think it's the wildlife corridors that they like, because the hedges and the trees act as a corridor for all the wildlife. Yeah, and it was mentioned, wasn't it, that the bats feed from the hedgerows. Am I right? I'm not an expert, but there's lots of nodding. Thank you.
Okay, how are we doing?
I think, Chair, if I may, this probably needs a little chopping or rewording to make it into English, because it's bits at the moment, and we need to look at the conditions. Maybe take a pause to go through that. Members can get 10 minutes to get a cup of tea or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a brief break. Can I remind everyone, please, not to discuss the application outside this chamber? Talk about anything, but don't talk about this. And we'll come back in 10 minutes, which will be at 10 to 3. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Welcome back after that short break. We, I think, have a draft proposal which we'll ask the proposer and seconder to give the thumbs up to, and then we can move to a vote on it. So, Mark, if you'd like to read that out, please.
Yes, I mean, this will need a little bit of tweaking, so it's based on this wording. It's not going to change much, but, you know, the odd comma, grammar, etc. Whilst contrary to policies SPO3 and LPO4 of the plan, the site comprises untreated land and possesses connectivity to the woodland and the triple SI. The environmental benefits outweigh the departure from policy due to the list here is educational benefits to the public, benefits to the environment, wildlife and scientific research, enhancements to the environment and good sustainable construction. These are benefits which may be secured in perpetuity and material considerations which allow for us to make a decision contrary to policy. So that's the reason for approval, which we have to do because it's contrary to the recommendation. Do we vote on that first, or do we do the whole thing together with the conditions? Fair enough. Okay. So the second part of that then is the recommendation, which is prior to that there should be a legal agreement to permanently relinquish any residential use of the existing cottage, and also to establish landscape and habitat management in perpetuity, and also measures for education. There's three things there. Relinquish residential use of the dwelling. Yes, Councillor.
Could we also put removal of permitted development rights?
Yeah, that's in the condition.
That is in the
that's
condition.
In the condition, yeah.
And
yeah.
the small HGVs?
We've got a construction management plan condition.
Yeah, which includes small HGVs. Are they called short wheelbase?
Doesn't say that particularly, but do you want it to say that?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Because you will not get large lorries up there.
All right. So we'll go to that condition in a minute. So the three heads of the legal agreement are permanently relinquish any existing residential use of the existing cottage, so that can never be a house again. And also the establishment of the landscape and habitat management in perpetuity, and tied to that is the house, of course. And thirdly, measures for education. It's not been clear how that's going to be secured, so we'll probably look at legal agreement for that. And Councillor Grandin's got a question.
Thank you. Can I just check what you said just then? Because my question was, did that include the main house? But then you said something to do with the main house. Could you repeat what you said, please?
The existing house would have its residential use quashed, basically expunged, gone away forever. Could never use the house again.
But what about the main house?
Oh, sorry.
It's always been linked to it.
Yeah, the house.
The new house.
The new house would be tied in with the landscape and habitat management, so that it would all be under one jurisdiction, basically. So you couldn't have somebody looking after the field and somebody else living in the house or anything like that. It's all tied in together.
And it can't be sold off as a separate entity.
No, in fact, the applicant
like
did suggest they've got some sort of a covenant in place for that. So anyway, we need that as well. So those are the three pillars to make it a lawful.
Can I intervene? I'm just being a pedantic lawyer for the avoidance of any doubt, because we're being watched on YouTube. We're not talking about revoking an existing planning permission with the house, because we're not paying compensation, are we? So we're simply, it's a legal agreement to say that use will not be, it won't be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So if everybody's okay with that, I'll move on to the conditions, of which there are, I think, 17. And these are mostly from our consultees, so you may have seen it in the documents anyway. So we've got the first two standard conditions, which are the time limit, commenced within 3 years, approved plans and documents. Then we've got some high waste conditions. We've got parking, EV charging, bins, cycle parking, and what they didn't ask for was a construction management plan, which is what we want. And Councillor maybe has suggested that should include reference to small vans. In fact, you've already written this here.
If I...
It's actually already in their construction management plan. So let's just, the heading is construction management plan. We'll word it so that it has what you want, and also it'll refer to what they've already given to us, basically.
Thank you.
Landscaping, there's a condition for advanced planting. So this is on the western southern boundary, so that's planted up front, basically, before anything else. Then there's another condition for soft landscaping, and then a compliance period for the landscaping. And then there's a landscape and ecological management plan. Some of these things overlap with what the application is actually all about, and we're going to have to probably weed through this a little bit, but these have been asked for by the consultees, and it's just easier to say we'll have these and we'll dispose of them as necessary. Then there are ecology conditions.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Grandin has a question.
Yes,
Is it
sure.
on this
Sure.
point? Yeah.
Can we or should we have a condition regarding the existing cottage that no overnight stays are permitted, or is that irrelevant, or have you already said that?
The residential use would be no more. So if you're asking whether people who are working on site would stay overnight, I mean, yes, we could. We could do that if you want, if members are happy with that.
Mr. Chairman, as the seconder to this, I don't think that's necessary. I'm sorry. I think we have to be a little bit flexible. If they've got a worker there for some reason that decides to bed down for the night, that's fine. I think we're making too heavy work.
That's fine, that's fine.
I think we'll get to a point where, you know, if somebody's taking liberties, then obviously that would be against the legal agreement. So if there's something occasional happens, you just have to be a bit pragmatic about it, let's say. But I'm getting that the condition is not desired. So there's an ecological appraisal recommendation, which will just tie into the decision as well. Again, there's overlaps with what the application is all about, but it relates more to existing wildlife. Biodiversity, precautionary biodiversity method statement, which really is just looking at newts and things like that. Avoiding disturbance to bats during the construction. One would hope that the applicant in this occasion definitely would comply with that. And then biodiversity enhancement strategy. Now, there are items in the application already that probably cover this, so we'd probably reword it to say shall comply with those, that will cover it, have it as a condition. Wildlife sensitive lighting scheme. Then we're on to the environmental protection conditions, which are foul drainage, what's that one? Construction. Oh yeah, compliance with the construction plan, and that's in relation to vibrations rather than highway stuff, so two slightly different construction management plans there. No burning, removal of permitted development rights for the new house, and they are them. Thank you. So that's your recommendation.
So as that stands, as Mark has read out, are you happy to continue with that, please, proposer?
I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And seconder?
Yes, very well done.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we can now move to a vote on that proposal as read out by the Area Planning Officer.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer. Thank you. Councillor Grandin. Thank you. And Councillor Mabry. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 9 votes for and 2 against. Therefore, that's approved. Thank you.
To the end of today's business. So thank you very much for your attendance both this morning and this afternoon, and I'm formally closing the meeting at 15:02. Thank you.